Now we have another speech, how to counter the evil influences of society. I request respected Dr. Mirza Mohyuddin Sahib, National Secretary Zirā, please come and present your speech.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I was going to suggest the same thing, so you got your exercise. That's mashallah, that's good job. The subject is how to counter the evil influence of society. Before I start my topic, while sitting on breakfast, a good friend from Edmonton told me that Mirza Sahib, when you have a tendency to go overtime, so always put some candy in your mouth, so far which dissolve in 20 minutes. I couldn't find a candy yet which will dissolve in 20 minutes. And then he told me that one speaker stick to that, but one day he was speaking and speaking and speaking, and people asked him what's happened. He said, well, by mistake today I was chewing on a coat button, you see, so rather than. So I don't have a button, I have a candy in my mouth, so 20 minutes will be good for me. Ladies and gentlemen, in the history of world civilization, every society had their ups and downs. I remember in 1964, when there was a government of President Ayub Khan in Pakistan, he did a very good order something. He said that all the science students must take some arts classes or something. So I picked up a history of world civilization. And it was my favorite that how the societies which were great achievement and then how did they fall occurs. When the amount of evils increased in those societies compared to their good things, then they started decaying, we call them. So that's where I learned that it was very tough for me to come up with what sort of evil we are looking at. So I have to, I'll tell you how the Holy Quran and how the writings of Prophet ﷺ and how the teaching of Khulafas have helped me to prepare this speech. The interesting thing is, after reaching the peaks of prosperity, moral decadence set in, and finally such societies disappeared from the surface of this earth. But archaeologists discover the remains of such civilization, and people visit such places, but very few learn from them, from these societies, that what evil brought them down. Evil is sometimes difficult to define unless we involve religion. Philosophers, anthropologists have tried to define an evil, but always have come to the conclusion that evil involves some immoral actions. And defining morals without religion is impossible. Any act or action becomes evil if it goes against the commandments of the Creator. And in our journey of life, we have hundreds of commandments, from waking up until we sleep, go to job, which we have to contend with. So very difficult to define, but remember this definition that any action or acts become immoral, they become evil once against the commandment of the Creator, God the Almighty. In religion, the word sin और गुनाह की जो तारीफ़ है वो भी बड़ी दिलचस्प है. हज़रत मसीह मौद अलैहिस्सलाम ने और खुलफ़ा ने इस पर काफ़ी रोशनी डाली हुई है. I would like to point out the subject of sin, Satan and suffering is also very intriguing. And also remember that because many of us do tabligh, so remember that we don't believe in inherited sin. Christians believe that sin is inherited. Adam and Eve did a sin, and this is in our genes now. That's not the case. We don't believe in inherited sin. So when I talk about sin or evil, It's not that it is inherent in us. One must understand the famous book of the Prophet ﷺ, the philosophy of the teaching of Islam, word by word. I'd like to encourage you to do that. Now, not surprisingly, the Holy Quran has mentioned several examples of such societies. The Holy Quran describes 4 characteristics of the society we are living in. Many times I ask myself that, am I in that society which the Quran describes as a materialistic? In chapter 74, verse 43 and 47, it says that what has brought you into the fire of hell? They will say, we were not of those who worshipped God, nor did we feed the poor, and we indulge in vain talks and vain pursuit with those who indulge therein, and we used to deny the day of judgment. So I thought it was a summary of the evils we are dealing with. Number 1, failure to perform the worship. Today in the news was Pope Paul is visiting Ireland, and they are saying that the percentage of people going to church decreased from 70% to 30%. So generally, people are not worshiping the way God has said that he should be worshipped. Failure to feed the poor is also a hallmark of a society which is as a society we have achieved a lot of technical, we are comfortable, we are affluent, but still poor people in Calgary, Edmonton, homeless is there. Number 3, indulgence in vain pursuits and extreme pleasure. Pursuit of pleasure has gone so much at every level that people have lost the context of this life. And number 4 is denial of the day of reckoning, a day of accountability. People are not afraid anymore that we will be accountable both in this world and in the hereafter to our Creator, the God who has given us these capacities and capabilities to do that. So in the context of worship, Salat is the most important to counter this gap here. And I have wondered so many times why our beloved Khalifatul Masih al-Khamas, Sayyid Abdul Aziz, emphasizes again and again on Salat, perform in time, go to the mosque. It teaches us the discipline of life. And once you are praying to God in Salat, look at the wording of that with meaning. If we follow that very closely, then we could counter the ill effects which are constantly bombarding us 5 times a day or tahajjud. Somebody raised a point with me that your God you are praying to also created evil. So how could you pray to him who has created evil? If I say, God made me to do this, many times criminals use this argument, a voice came to me and then I did this killing and I did this action. So I always tell them that God did not create evil or not even created goodness. He bestowed on his creation, on us, capabilities and capacities. I'm talking in front of you. I'm using my tongue. I'm using my hands. I'm using my brain. Who gave me that capacities? Allah gave those capacities and capabilities. And then because he is just, so he gave us the freedom. How do we use it? As far as we're concerned, we did not feed the poor. That's the second reason, as I mentioned in the Holy Quran. And this quality relates to quality of sharing with others. Sharing even if you don't have, and sharing when you have is not that good. Sharing is when you share at every level. So remember this evil as well, that we are not looking after less fortunate people as a society. Indulgence in vain pursuit is one of the biggest evil in society. Talking ill of each other, being jealous of each other, pursuit of pleasure is going to an extreme level. It is expressed in many ways, like in the Holy Quran has beautifully summarized in chapter 57:21, and I quote, "Know that the life of this world is only a sport and a pastime and an adornment and source of boasting among yourself and of rivalry in multiplying riches and children. It's like the rain, the vegetation produced whereby rejoicing the tillers." जब जो ज़िम्मेदार हैं, जब फसल तैयार होती है, आजकल मसलन आप अगर ड्राइव कर रहे हो तो फसलें तैयार हैं, गंदम जो है तैयार है, बार्ली तैयार है, अचानक बारिश आ गई, हार्वेस्ट नहीं कर सकते, quality goes down. So Allah says here, it's like the rain, the vegetation produced whereby rejoices the tillers, then it dries up, and thou seest it turn yellow, then it becomes worthless stubble. I have to give this example because I'm Secretary of Agriculture as well. So, beautiful example of agriculture Allah repeatedly gives in the Holy Quran. And in the hereafter, there is severe punishment to the wicked one, and also forgiveness from Allah and His pleasure for the righteous, and the life of this world is nothing but temporary enjoyment of delusive things. So this verse provides the tool to counter the evils of this society, as long as we keep in mind and think about it, what is the purpose of our life from A to Z. The fourth evil of this society is lack of accountability. Accountability to whom? This is the main question. Accountability to the Creator. That's the ultimate accountability. On the day of judgment, I will be called to the account. How did I use my hands? How did I use my tongue? How did I use my wisdom or whatever I had? How did I use it? And it will be like an open book. Being the creator of you and me and everything on this earth, God is, we have ultimate accountability to Him. And then most important thing is understanding God. In my whole speeches since yesterday, those who have carefully listened to them were focused on God the Almighty. And if we want to counter the ills and evil of this society, then we must know what is God and who is God. There was a mountain climber who was very well experienced in climbing, and he has gained a lot of, he went to all over the world and climbed big mountains. And he was a good team builder, team player. So one day he thought that nature is beautiful, so I will go and climb this mountain close to my house. I will time it in such a way that by the time I reach the mountain top, it will be, sun will be setting. So I just want to see the glory of God, glory, not God, sorry, not yet, glory of nature. That's what the word he used. So he didn't tell anybody, well, I'll go there for 2 hours, 3 hours. So, you know, these mountain climbers have big backpack in them and all the tools. So he planned this way. So by 4 o'clock, he was climbing on this mountain. One by one, you know, if you climb the mountain, it's just the step by step. So you put one nail in, climb up. And ultimately, he reached the top. And when he put his left arm on the top, his rope started slipping. And he started slipping, and it was already dark there, so the sun was setting. And during that time, his brain was working hard. His life was running like a film through him. He thought that, what did I do? I was angry with my wife most of the time. I was angry with my children. I was so negative. No was the first thing. I didn't pay my chanda regularly. A lot of things were happening at that time in his mind. And he thought that I'm going to die now. So sun is setting. I didn't tell my wife that. So suddenly the rope stopped and he was hanging from the top, totally dark, didn't know how far the earth is. So first he checked himself, okay, I'm good, no injury. And then he thought, what should I do? I didn't tell my family. By the time rescue team will come, I will be frozen. So suddenly a thought came to him that I had some good friends who used to tell me that there's a God and who helps as well. So he rejected that idea, why God will care for me. I never trusted him. I never knew about him. I was just busy in my life. So why should I call him? Well, then again he thought about it. Finally, he brought the strength and loudly said that, God, if you're around, please help me. So God heard his voice, and a voice came to him. Now how God will appear? So a voice came, okay, my son, I have heard your voice. Tell me, what could I do for you? And he was in an angry mood type. He said, what kind of God you are that you know my condition, you are all-knowing, you are al-Ghab. Don't you know what I'm doing? He said, no, God said, no, I just want to hear from you because I want you to tell me. He said, well, you know, I'm hanging here. I don't know how far the earth is. What should I do? And God said, okay, I know your backpack. You had packed a lot of things there, and there's one good knife there as well. So take that knife out and cut your rope. And God was busy in other things, so he left. And now this man is hanging by his rope, and God has told me, cut that rope. And he said, what should I do? He said, well, God loves me so much that he just wants me to die and come and see him. He didn't cut his rope. And it is said that next day, when finally rescue team came, he was barely hanging 2 feet above the ground. That is the moral of the story. If you trust God, then involve God at every level. That was my story. And at the end, if the... Oh, better check 2 minutes, excellent. What is the... Oh, I got to tell you this another story as well. People remember God differently. There was a Maulvi Sahib who was really claimed that he loved God, and he will get up in the morning, and by 3 o'clock he will be at the mosque, turn his loudspeaker on, and then start reciting God's praise. And people are very tired of him, all the neighbors, that why this Maulvi Sahib is doing it. They tried their best to make him understand, don't do this, please. He said, no, I love God. So one smart person who was his neighbor went and hid in the mosque behind a curtain. So when Maulvi Sahib came, he started doing this. So he suddenly said, Maulvi Sahib, you really love me? In a very heavy voice, and Maulvi Sahib was shocked. And then he said, oh, this must be my own imagination. Then finally he said, Maulvi Sahib, if you love me so much, why don't you come to me? And Maulvi Sahib felt this, Allah is really want me to come. He ran away from the mosque. So worship God properly as well. And at the end, the main message is, what is the take-home message? If I have to give that message, remember, arrogance, anger, and ego. Those are the 3 main evils we are facing right now. Prophet ﷺ had written extensively on arrogance, and I will love you to go to the Google. Just type the word arrogance and Prophet ﷺ. The first article will be coming right there. May God bless you. Keep your red flag up to see what's going on, what evil around you. Fight that evil with the help of God. May Allah be with you.